And
Or
this,
over here, there's a
the
creek.
sound comes all the way this way because I think it's a long piece of
Kept
wood.
going like this, and that was creek and creek. If I move up, it's not a creek.
We're on.
All right, welcome, Chag Sameach, our very last holiday. When you say Chag Sameach and you do it on Sukkot, Simchat Torah, you're actually correct. All the other holidays, other things, Good Yontif, can work, but Chag is only this time of year. And it also, today, this morning, as I was telling Cantor on the way in, it represents the end of our holiday season here at Shir Shalom, that marathon that we run 3 weeks as we go from Rosh Hashanah to today, to Simchat Torah. A lot of joy and sadness, as it always is, and complexity. How grateful we are just to have made it through as individuals and as communities. We're coming together today, those of you who are joining us in person, which is very nice, and those of you from afar. First of all, special shout out to Rose Haber. If you're listening, we wish you could one day be in person, but we are missing you, Rose. We are basically on Yiskers. We realize how very important Yisker is, and that's the essence of what we've come together, and so that's what we're going to do today. For those of you that are in person that want to hold the Torah or be near the Torah, we do have them, so if you haven't had a chance, we will have a chance, but this is going to be exclusively a Yisker service. We'll have a chance to read our names, both from our synagogue as well as from Temple Bethel in Niagara Falls. And we will mourn together and be sad even on happy times. I'd like to begin with a poem. It's called Cursed Silence. Stars, in fact, reverberate, buzzing like street lamps when on cool summer nights swarms of gnats surround them. And even when we think no one can hear, our hearts pound, bellies rumble, tears cry as they slide down our cheeks. If nothing can be heard, check your hearing. Even silence has a sound, a slight grovel like a white noise machine. Just go and try, and what you think of as quiet will scream, turning even sunshine into piercing shards of light. We come here in that silence, and we turn to page 583. We're blessed to have Paul. the melody for In the Rising of the Sun. And why don't we read together the English? In the rising of the sun and its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of buds, in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. In the rustling of the leaves, in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as they live, we too shall live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. We're going to continue on page 575 with another English reading. Sorry, it's behind us here. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey, from childhood to maturity, from youth to age, from innocence to awareness, and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backwards or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey from birth to death to life everlasting. We continue with Psalm 23 on page 576.
Mizmor David, Adonai Ravi, Lo Echsar, V'radeshem Yod B'tzendi, Habe Menuchot Yed Nahaleni, Nafshi Shoven, Yancheni V'maglet Tzedek, למען שמו. גם כי ילך בקיצון עובד, לא ירא כי אתה עמדי. שבתך
We turn to the English. Please join with me. A Psalm of David. That's page 576. Apologies. A Psalm of David, Adonai is my shepherd, I lack nothing. God makes me to lie down in green pastures. God leads me to water in places of repose. God renews my life. God guides me in right paths and befits God's name. Though I walk through a valley of deeper darkness, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You spread a table before me in full view of mine enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My drink is abundant. Only goodness and steadfast love shall pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai for many long years. So we're going to close our prayer books momentarily, and I'd like to take some time now to actually explain why are we observing Yizkor here on one of our happiest days of the year. It seems so peculiar and out of place whenever we did a full Simchat Torah service, morning service, dancing with the Torah. It always was so hard to come back to that place of grief and sadness. This is a room, those of you brave enough to join us in person or virtually, that's hard to enter. It's full of sadness. As I talked to a friend recently who went to another friend who lost their father, and this person had also lost their father, and how hard it was just to go into the funeral home, to be present, and to kind of relive it. So why here, of all days, do we have Yisker? But before I get to that, I want to ask another important question, which is, if you were going to judge Jewish holidays, they're all very happy. What is the happiest Jewish holiday? It's kind of a trick question, but let's see, since we have people here. What do you think? Just shout it out, whatever you think. Simchat Torah, the one holiday now. What else? Hanukkah. Mm-hmm. Purim. Mm-hmm. Our upside down holiday. Passover. I always think of Passover as our happiest holiday because it's really such a joyous reunion. Of course, Sukkot and Rosh Hashanah and even Yom Kippur just are filled with joy at their essence. But according to the Talmud, and those of you on our Talmud study, they know this, there's actually a happier Jewish holiday that we don't celebrate anymore. And I want to tell you, we read a whole description in Sukkah, which is the Talmud tractate about Sukkot, and it's incredible. This is from the Mishnah, so this really goes back to the Second Temple period, and it's describing this ritual. One who did not see the celebration of the place of the drawing of water never saw celebration in their days. At the conclusion, and this is how it happened, at the conclusion of the first festival, Sukkot, which is, we're right here at the conclusion of the festival, so the Shmini Atzeret, the priests and the Levites descended from the Israelite courtyard to the women's courtyard, where they would introduce a significant repair. We were debating, what does it mean? I think there was actually a repair that they were going to show, they were going to do. There were golden candelabra atop the poles in the courtyard. And there were 4 basins made of gold at the top of each candelabra. And there were 4 ladders for each and every pole. And there were 4 children from the priesthood, trainees. And in their hands were pitchers with a capacity of 120 logs, so quite big, of oil that they would pour into each and every basin. From the worn trousers of the priests and their belts, they would loosen and tear strips to use as wicks. It was amazing. They took their clothing to use as wicks, and with them they would light the candelabra. And the light from the candelabra was so bright there was not a courtyard in Jerusalem that was not illuminated from the light of the place of the drawing of water. The pious and the men of action would dance before the people who attended the celebration with flaming torches. They would juggle in their hands. They would say before them passages of songs and praise to God. And the Levites would play on lyres, on harps, on cymbals and trumpets, and countless other musical instruments. The musicians would stand on the 15 stairs that descend the Israelite courtyard to the women's courtyard, corresponding to the 15 Psalms of David of ascent, and upon which the Levites stand with musical instruments and recite their song. 2 priests stood at the upper gate that descends from the Israelites' courtyard to the women's courtyards, and 2 trumpets in their hand. When the rooster crowed at dawn, they sounded a tikkiah, and sounded a truah, and sounded a tikkiah again, and a truah, and a tikkiah, to indicate the time to draw water from the Siloam pool had arrived. When they reached the woman's courtyard with the basins of water in their hand, the trumpeters sounded a tikkiah, and sounded a truah, and sounded another tikkiah. When they reached the ground of the women's courtyard, the trumpeters sounded another tikkiah, and another truah, and another tikkiah. They continued sounding the trumpets until they reached the gate, which one exits in the east from the women's courtyard to the eastern slope of the Temple Mount. When they reached the gate which one exits to the east, they turned from facing east to facing west towards the Holy of Holies and said, "Our ancestors who were in this place during the first temple period, who did not conduct themselves appropriately, stood with their backs toward the sanctuary of the Lord and their faces toward the east, and they worshiped the sun toward the east. And we, our eyes are to God." Rabbi Yehuda says that they would repeat and say, "We are to God, our eyes are to God." It's such a beautiful description. We can only imagine what this joyous ceremony was. And what is it about? It's about a great moment of trepidation. They fill these basins with water, not knowing if more water would arrive. Winter, as we know, has arrived in Judea. As we today, for the first time and last night, recite the prayers of rain. And we don't know if that rain will come or not come, and yet we celebrate with full joy. So going back to my original question about sadness, how does Yisker fit in? Because it's always hard. I know when Cantor puts together her menus, it's just so difficult to figure out. How do we place Yisker? How do we process it? And I think what I've come to learn, first of all, we learn from this. There's sadness there too. We shouldn't just ignore it. There's sadness because we don't know. We might not survive the winter. We don't know what will come. There's also a degree of sadness, which was in the first poem that we read today, not my own personal, from the prayer book, in the rising of the sun. When we've lost someone dear to us, one of the hardest times is in happy holidays. This is something that in the American calendar really gets wrong. And it's a great injustice to a lot of people on Thanksgiving, on New Year's, for Christians, on Christmas and Easter. There's supposed to be only joy. But that doesn't make sense to me, because those are also, for some, very sad holidays, very hard holidays. Maybe they have had a loss. Maybe their lives, they are disconnected from others, particularly during COVID. And I think we should honor that sadness. And that's what we do. When we come together on Yisker, we are saying, yes, this is the most joyous time. And this is the end of that most joyous time. But still, we need to recognize that part of our hearts have a little sadness. And we do this, of course, in a wedding. When we break the glass, we remember there is still sadness. No matter how happy that couple and their families and their community is, we should recognize not everyone has that happiness. Not everyone in that moment feels that joy. And we should also honor their emotions as well. We do it on Passover with the taking of a little bit of our wine, dropping it out. So many times we just remember that it's okay. We need to feel complete joy, but even in the most joyous times, even in this water festival, we still have a little bit of sadness. So today, we have come to honor. We've come to allow our ancestors to celebrate joyfully with us. So many of us learned what it means to be Jewish from the people that are lit up around the room, from the people that are on the list that we'll read momentarily. We learned everything we know. That's how we found happiness. And we bring them into this ceremony. They may not be in body, but they are most certainly in spirit with us. We are going to, at this point, turn to our Yisker Prayers, and I would like to read our list. First with Temple Bethel in Niagara Falls, and Dr. Rabbi Ellen Franke apologizes. She wasn't able to make it, but if her community is joining with us, we're grateful to be able to read their names as well. We remember from the Temple Bethel community, Warren Kahn, Mary Ellen O'Mara, Vincent Porto, Mickey Porto, Ralph Horowitz, Miriam Mimi Schaefer, and Charles Stoll III. It's very sad. That's a small community. That's quite a lot of loss they've had. In our own community, we also feel it, particularly at this time. Just in the past year, from last Simchat Torah to today, we're remembering Phyllis Abels, Dr. Sidney Antone, Bruce Baum, Robert Burkow, S. Edmund Berger, Sevi Brakiak, Bambi Brody, Richard M. Brummer, Pauline Brummer, Vivian Burstein Berkowitz, Myron Carroll, Rosemary Chow, Alec Cohen, Barry Cohen, Lynn Converso Miller, Charles Culata, Andy Dale, Michelle Davis, Charles Dobler, Carlton DeBozen, Helen Donnelly, Bernie Engel, Minette Epter, Myra Falk, Rosalind Faust Gerard, Alva Finkelstein, Herb Foster, Sandra Friedferdig, Don Galinsky, Marvin Garelick, Eva Gluckman, Helene Goldfarb, Jeremy Goldman, Ron Groth, Eileen Haber, Pam Harrisberg, Donna Heitner, Thaddeus Hennessy, Linda Herman, Jean Hubush, Howard Hilfstein, Barbara Hollander, Myra Horowitz, Sylvia Jones, Robert Caton, Kenneth Nightinger, Patricia Nightinger, Natasha Kolkin, Berna Corin, Samuel Corris, Marilyn Kriegel, Charles Lefcourt, Charles Lemansky, Estelle Leonard, Jack Locke, William Mahaney III, Henry Mann, Eileen Markowitz, Francis Massimo, Gloria Massimo, Dewey McCoy, Dr. Robert Milch, Ruth Miller, Natalie Miller, Fern Middleman, Ronald Mudge, Howard Mutler, Sylvia Nadell, Vladimir Naden, Levy Palmer Jr., Norma Perlman, Jillian Pearson, Frank Petrie, Ellen Pine, Kimberly Platt, Lorraine Pleskow, Robert Eugene Powell Jr., Lola Przaznek, David Rose, Jay Rosenthal, Muriel Rosenthal, Eli Ruckenstein, Daryl Evan Shepard, Deborah Schmeidler, Edward J. Shunk, David Schwartz, Doris Sirota, Ida Soror, Phyllis Siegel, David Sievers, Helene Smolin, Inga Strauss, Nancy Taylor, Meyer Tubin, Sarah Weinstein, Ann Winkelstein, Paula Ann Witherall, and Stephen Zappia. I invite you, if you'd like to rise and to recite your own memorial prayers, they're on page 580. Take some opportunity just for your own prayers. bottom of 581. I used to be part of you, belonging to you, the extension of your being, but now you live within me, are the spark of my consciousness. I say Kaddish for you, with you, as you, singing your melodies, speak your words, hearing your voice in mine. And my eyes, too green, have somehow started to reflect the blue of yours. I used to be part of you, protected by your presence, by your light, but now the time is mine, and alone I must be more than myself. Your child has become your heir, has become you. El Malay, for our mourners, page 582, as we pray, all these souls have reached the Garden of Eden with their ancestors and are at peace. 582. Together in the English. Fully compassionate God on high, to our loved ones who have entered eternity, grant clear and certain rest with you in the lofty heights of the sacred and pure, whose brightness shines like the very glow of heaven. Source of mercy, forever unfold them in the embrace of your wings. Secure their souls in eternity. Adonai, they are yours. They will rest in peace. Amen. You may be seated. We're going to be doing Mourner's Kaddish in just a minute. First, we have Rich Caton here. Our condolences as a community for the loss of your brother, Robert. We're grateful you're able to get down for the funeral and to be present, and we just hope his memory is always for a blessing. We also lost this week Doris Sirota, wonderful participant in our Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon Bible study. She would come. She was always very quick and compassionate. I just always have missed her since because we haven't really seen each other that much since the pandemic started. And I did sit down with her husband Harvey, and I learned all about her. She was apparently a terrific shot, so you always had to watch out for her. But very bright and a mathematician. She loved numbers as well. So what a loss it is, and we're just grateful that she's at peace. And we had mentioned last week as well Alec Cohen, who was a 29-year-old nephew of Gail Kushner, great nephew, who had died. Very sad loss. He was a police officer. He died of, I think, like bronchial complications, something something like that, and just very sad in the prime of his life. We're remembering on our yard site, in addition to recent losses, we always remember those that passed at different times. Our grief extends through the years. And so I'm going to read our yard site list today as well. We're remembering Gloria Atlas, Stanley Bardak, Jocelyn Berg, Estelle Borowitz, Sarah C. Carr, Warren J. Caviar, Lorraine Cherbow, Molly Foreman, Jack Friedman, Samuel Furash, Tilly Glick, Zelda B. Goldenberg, Phyllis Goldman, Betty Goodman, Mary Eisenberg, Leo Kahn, Gordon Kantrowitz, Irving Kaprov, Kenneth Karch, Bert Kremer, Solomon Kusnitz, Harold J. Molman, Milton Phillips, Eleanor Reiner, Pauline Rozikoff, Ida Milford Sarafti, Macy Savatsky, Edith Schwartz, Betty Levin Simon, Susan Solander Ballas, Benjamin Starsky, David Steinberg, Joseph Stolberg, Benjamin Schultz, Morris Taxon, Jerry Simons, Frank Trippi, Robert Wakeoff, Minna Winiger, and Bella Zebrak. And if there are other names you'd like to mention, feel free to. And those of you whose custom it is to rise for the Mourner's Kaddish, wherever you are, and those of you joining us, I hope this is also consoling to you as well. There's no melody to this. This is about sanctifying God's great name in honor of those that we've lost. Page 598. Yidkadal v'yidkadash shemei rabbah b'yalma divra chirutei v'yamlik malchutei v'chayachon v'yamachon v'chayed echol beit Yisrael v'agala v'izman kariv v'yamru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevorach li'olam olmeo maya yitbarak v'yishtabak v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudesha b'rechu le'elam min kol berchata v'shirata tushbakata v'nechamata damiran v'yalma v'yamru amen. Yehi shalom rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yamru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav. Huyas, our executive director, is going to come over to offer the announcements.
Chag Sameach, everyone. Thank you to Rabbi Cantor and Paul for a lovely service honoring our loved ones. Please join us on Friday. We will now begin services at 7 p.m. inside in the sanctuary from now forward. And also on Saturday, the Walk-Off Hunger is at 10 a.m. You can register in person if you'd like or online, and we will walk the original route that began the Walk-Off Hunger. So please join us. Chag Sameach.
Doris Sirota's funeral is tomorrow at 11 at Amherst Memorial. There's no Shiva, but just letting you guys know. And yeah, I think we have a closing melody.
No, just Paul was going to just play as people were leaving.
Yeah, so what we'll do is that's our procession. So this officially concludes our service today. As you came in peace, may you leave in peace, and we'll bring our prayer books back to the front. Chag Sameach, and just take care.